G'day, Ronnie Dale, Four Wheeling Australia. Welcome to another video about lightening up your vehicle so it's not heavy and you don't have all the maintenance issues and going through tyres and being on the wrong side of legality, wrong side of your GVM. I'm going to give you 10 bits of advice and tips on how to lighten the load of your vehicle, lighten the vehicle itself and lighten all the gear that you put in it. Number one, calculate everything you put into your vehicle. Plan ahead. Think about what you want your vehicle to be able to do. Think about what you actually need. If you're building a vehicle for fishing trips only, there's certain things that you won't need, and there are certain things that you will need. If it's a tour that goes around Australia for a whole year, you may need to think about, most people that do that usually go towing. You need to keep your vehicle light as so you can tow. So many ins and outs you need to consider. Now, a lot of these things will be covered in the next 9 tips, but this is where everything starts. Calculate, think ahead, plan ahead. Don't just go and throw your money at this accessory place, that accessory place. Don't listen to all these people in accessory shops because their job is to sell you stuff. That is how they make a living. Don't just put everything on your vehicle. Everything must have a purpose. Calculate, plan, think about it. Twin fridges. You have 2 fridges. If you think about it, it doesn't make sense to have 2 fridges. Of course, if you need to have 2 massive fridges and you have a good reason for it, well then, okay, you have a reason for it. But if you have 2 40-litre fridges, say if I had 2 40-litre Engels in the back of my utes, for one, I'm doubling the weight, and 2, I'm doubling the power usage. There's now 2 compressors. 2 compressors working, 2 compressors worth of weight. So had you gone, instead of going 2 40-litre Engels, had you gone an 80-litre Engel, then you have 1 compressor, 1 power draw, and you got the same amount of space that you achieved with 2 40 litres. Now, of course, if you want to use one as a freezer and one as a fridge, that's a bit different. That might be a necessity. But my point here is, think about it. Do you really need 2 fridges? You're going to have to double draw the power. Not to mention the cost. If you buy 2 40 Engels as opposed to 1 80-litre Engel, you're paying more power draw, more weight. Just get the 80-litre. So think about the fridge you want from the beginning. But let's take this one step further. People with fridge slides. Most fridge slides on the market, especially the MSA ones, they weigh 50 kilos or thereabouts. So when you add your fridge on top of it, you almost have 100 kilos just for your fridge. Think about it. Like, some people have 2 fridges and 2 fridge slides. That's almost 200 kilos right there. Think about that when it comes to GVM. People calculate their solar output to what they need. Add another fridge to the mix. Now you may need to upgrade your solar, which means extra weight on the roof. That could be another 10, 15 kilos. If you live in Australia and you do a lot of outback remote touring, I do advise that you have a bull bar. Alloy bull bars are lighter, steel bull bars are heavier, winch compatible bull bars with a winch in them are a lot heavier. They may be necessary to what the type of driving you are doing. So think about it. Do you need a winch? If you don't need a winch, don't put a winch in. Don't get a winch compatible bar because they're slightly heavier than a non-winch compatible bar. However, should you choose to get a winch later, then you're going to wish you had a winch compatible bar. So they're things you got to weigh up. Alloy bars are okay, but if you have an animal strike, it'll help save your life, but it won't do much for your vehicle. A steel bull bar is where it'll save your life and it'll save your vehicle to an extent where you can possibly still drive on, depending on what you hit. If it's a cow, that's a different story. But we're talking about kangaroos here and small animals. Alloy bull bars can get destroyed just by kangaroos. Steel trays, that is a big issue. And canopies. Now, when people go for an aluminium canopy, they tend to go for a 3mm canopy. Whereas opposed to a steel canopy, they would have done it at a 2mm or 1mm. And the end result is The aluminium, yes, it is lighter, but it's not that much lighter. They have to strengthen it in all these different ways. If you do go for a very thin aluminium, lightweight, pop riveted and glued setup, that is where you need to go. You need to go for glue and pop rivets. You don't want to go for welds. Welds add weight and usually mean heavier material has been used. Trays. Please consider aluminium trays. If you go a steel tray, you're using a lot of your GVM up already. Steel trays are super heavy and it adds up real fast, real fast. I used to have steel trays. I had a modular steel tray, that was heavy. Then I went to a custom steel tray, that was even heavier. And then I added a frame to it and it all just adds up. It all adds up. Try and go for aluminium on the back. For those who don't know, this box, Project Black, weighs 50 kilos empty. 50 kilos empty. I had a box about the same size as this, sitting this way, and that weighed 200 kilos. That's 150 kilos extra than that. So with the box I had before, it's 200 kilos on the back of my tray before I even had anything in it. Be very careful. Be very careful and research. Just research, research, research. You don't want to make that mistake because once you've spent those big dollars, because none of this stuff is cheap, you're stuck with it. Yes, lightweight aluminium stuff is more expensive, but it's lighter. It does what it needs to do. It holds everything and you're not in a predicament of having something that's too heavy that you may have to remove later on because it's just too heavy and the vehicle handles like a bag of potatoes. So be very careful, be mindful. Custom stuff is not always the best way to go. The drawer set up in the back of your wagon. You're adding a lot of weight. It may be something that you need. I'm not going to argue about if you need it and it's convenient, then put it in, but you need to then not add too much weight somewhere else. So you need to balance it. If you can get away with not having drawers, you can use plastic boxes. You can label all the plastic boxes. They are super light. You're going to save so much weight. But in some cases, drawers are necessary. Roof racks. Roof racks is a big one. If you buy a cheap roof rack, they're going to be made of steel. If you buy a more expensive roof rack, make sure that it is aluminium so your money is going towards something that's worth the cost. Roof racks are heavy. And when they're on the roof, they're in the worst possible spot. I mean, they have to be on a roof because there's a roof rack, but you're putting it up high. That is the worst spot to put any weight on your vehicle. So make sure it is light and make sure you actually need a roof rack. Some people do, some people don't. And the other danger about roof racks is the fact that because people have a roof rack, they throw a whole heap of crap on the roof. And there's so much weight up here. So think about where you're putting your weight. Do I need a roof rack? In my case, I kind of do because the things that are on there are permanently mounted. I've got solar panel, I've got max tracks, I've got some lights at the top. I kind of need that. It serves a purpose. It holds my shower tent. It holds my shovel. It's a place to put stuff. So if it's used in a way where it's usable, then get a roof rack, sure. But make sure you're actually going to use it for the right reasons. While we're on roof racks, let's talk about rooftop tents, RTTs. There are many different RTTs on the market. You have your soft ones, you have your hard ones. You have the hard ones that are aluminium, you have your hard ones that are plastic or they're fiberglass. Go for the lightest option. You're going to pay a lot more money, but you're going to keep the weight down because whatever weight you're putting up there, you're going to have to take out somewhere else. Okay, because your GVM is limited. You are limited to what you can put on your vehicle. So I would go for the lightest and the most slimline rooftop tent that I could get. A wise man once said, well, many wise men once said out in the bush, that everything in your car needs to have two purposes, two useful purposes. Now, let's be realistic here. It's going to be pretty hard to have everything in your vehicle to serve two purposes. But if you could do that, you're going to be very efficient and you're going to have a lot less stuff with you. So I'll give you some examples. My bush knife, my trusty 20-year-old bush knife right here. This does everything, including when I'm eating. When I'm eating, I don't have a butter knife with me or a steak knife. I use this knife. I obviously clean it if I've used it for other applications, carving wood or opening bags or whatnot. I will use this knife to butter my bread, to cut the meat from a roast pork, to do all those kind of things. I don't need to have all these other knives with me, although I do carry some still, but I don't need to. This can serve as that. Another good example, a spray bottle with dishwashing liquid in it. That will serve a purpose to wash a table, but also if they puncture a tyre, they can also spray it around the tyre and find where the puncture is as well. That's another item with two uses. Another good one is using a camp oven lid as a frying pan. If you really want to save space, you can use a camp oven lid as a frying pan. You can also use a billy to boil your pasta. You don't need a pot for all these different things. You could use your billy that you boil water in for your coffee. You can use that for your pasta as well. You can cook rice in it. You can do a lot of things with it. Be smart about it, think about it, and if you have to cut down on space and cut down on weight, these are ways that you can do it. A lot of people carry tarps so they can get underneath their vehicle and, do some mechanical work to it, fix a repair, do something to the vehicle. Why not just use your ground sheet for your tent? Well, what about that? You could use your ground sheet for your swag. Just use that as a mechanic's tarp as well. It does the same thing. Some people carry leveling blocks for their caravans and trailers and their vehicles. You could just use your Max Tracks. If you have Max Tracks already, you might as well use them as leveling blocks. That's one less thing to carry. If you implement that mentality into all your gear, if you find 4 or 5 things that you can do that with, well, you're already reducing weight. One of my absolute favorite ones, and the smartest one, and one that's really going to help reducing weight, and that is share the gear between the convoy. If you have travel mates or friends that you travel with regularly, that is a lot easier because you can have like agreements that you bring the high lift jack, I'll bring the exhaust jack, you bring the bottle jack, you bring the cooker, you bring the gas. I won't bring that. I'll bring electrical tools. You can bring mechanical tools. You spread the gear between the crew, because if every vehicle carries a cooker, you're only going to use one cooker, right? If you all sort of cook together as like a group. If you all carry the same tools, what's the point? You're not all going to break down at the same time. Or if you do, you're going to be very bloody unlucky. It's no point in everyone carrying electrical, battery-powered cordless tools. You only need one person to do that. You don't need everyone to bring all this stuff. You only need one person with an inverter, maybe. You only need one person with a coffee machine, if you're so inclined to bring a coffee machine. There are so many things that you could cut down on because you don't need it. Cans versus bottles. Cans weigh a lot less than bottles, take up a lot less space than bottles, so there's a lot of benefits here. And when you're carrying around your rubbish, you're not carrying around a whole heap of bottles, you're carrying around cans, which you can crush. The other one, plastic jerry cans versus steel jerry cans. When it comes to weights, if you want to save weight, then just get plastic jerry cans. Yes, I know plastic jerry cans aren't as tough and robust as a steel jerry can, but I've been carrying plastic jerry cans for a long time, and I've carried steel as well, but I haven't had one plastic jerry can rupture or wear through yet. So if they last 5 or 6 years, who cares? Buy another one later. You're saving all that weight the whole time. An empty steel jerry can is pretty darn heavy. I will put a limitation on this. You could go all the way down to saying, don't bring your home pillow, you should bring this tiny little crappy pillow. You shouldn't bring metal utensils, you should bring plastic utensils. There are places where I draw the line myself, and all the stuff that I've talked about so far, if you are so adamant that you want to have glass bottles, well, that's your thing. I'm just giving you options here to cut down on your weight. The same thing here. I will always bring my home pillow because I've yet to find a pillow, a camping pillow, that's any good. Sleep's important when you're camping. You want to be comfortable. You don't want to make camping uncomfortable. The same thing with plastic utensils. They are absolute. That's why you want steel forks and knives when you're eating your food. It makes a lot more sense. It's like being on an airplane with those terrible plastic knives and forks, it's actually difficult to eat your food. But one thing I find with utensils, especially with utensils, I've done a lot of modifieds where it's all set up for 2 people. However, they still carry 4 bowls, 4 plates, and 6 sets of utensils. You don't need all that. Go through all your camping gear. Throw stuff out that you don't really need. Just keep what you need. You don't need 6 knives and 6 forks. You need 2 if you're traveling with 2 people. I see it all the time. All the stuff that's in your vehicle, all the stuff that's in your camper trailer, pull everything out. Lay it on the ground. Go through it. What haven't you used the last 2 or 3 times you've been camping? What have you used? Do 2 different piles. And then do another pile with intermediate stuff. I've occasionally used this. Think about when you used it. Was it in winter? Was it in summer? Was it at the beach? Was it in the outback? There are a lot of things that you can think about here to cut down and reduce on your weight. And think about the old saying, do I really need that? Because if you don't, you're just bringing unnecessary weights. Spun steel and cast iron. It's an obvious choice when it comes to weight. However, some people prefer cooking with cast iron, but if you're open for change or you haven't got a camp oven yet, put spun steel in as a consideration over cast iron. A lot lighter material for cooking will save you a lot of weight. This is pretty heavy, but some people prefer to cook on this, so it's up to you. But it doesn't stop there, it keeps going. Another good example, pots and pans. A lot of people tend to carry these really cheap ones, which are good. It's good because it's cost effective, but these are a lot more heavier than your hiking stuff. So if we did ditch those, which take up more room than this, that is one solution, but you're paying a lot more money for this. But as you can see, the storage and the lightweightness is so much better. But it depends what your budget is. So to give you a good solution for what we just had there, all you need is a screwdriver to take the handle off. Once you've taken the handle off, buy one of these little things here, and then you have a handle. And then you can store a smaller pot in there, or even better yet, don't bring the second pot. And you've just reduced weight, and you just save space and convenience. This is a 9 kilo gas bottle, but guess what? The bottle itself weighs more than 9 kilos. Now I can't show you because it's been covered up here, but I'll confirm that by looking at the other bottles. So when you consider a 9 kilo gas bottle, that's 18 kilos, more or less, because you got the 9 kilos of gas and you got the bottle itself. Stepping down one, here we have the 4 kilo gas bottle, but the tare weight of the bottle is 4.9 kilos. So here you have 9 kilos when it's full. Moving down the chain, we have the 2 kilo gas bottle. And guess what? It weighs, where's the tare on it? There it is, 3.32. So that means if you have 2 of these, you're carrying more weight. You're carrying more weight than you need to. I do get it though, because you carry 2 of these because one runs out, then you got the other one. I do understand that logic, but there's another option to reduce weight. If you want to go real lightweight, you can go to these canisters here, but they cost a lot more money. But that is the light way of carrying gas. One more awesome thing here to consider when you're packing all your gear. These are common items that all Australians bring to camp, and most people around the world. I mean, you wouldn't have Vegemite anywhere else but Australia, but we got Vegemite, tomato sauce, barbecue sauce. These are all Aussie favourites. Wait and check this out. Vegemite, condensed down into a little packet. Tomato sauce, condensed down. Barbecue sauce, condensed down. Now these are little soap packets that you buy. These are like the Sea to Summit ones, little packets. You can actually buy these bottles empty, believe it or not. Honey into a little container. Now we could all get away with that. Sugar, it's probably good for your health and a good idea because who uses this much sugar? But people bring it. Ta-da, that's all you need and that'll be more than enough. Salt, pepper and chili. Now that's probably another matter for me. I prefer these bigger ones because we use a lot of it. But for a single serving person who's camping, this is a bloody good idea and a bloody good way to reduce the amount of stuff you carry. Now you can do this throughout the entire kit that you have. This is coming from a hiking background. My mate Azza lent me all this to show you and it all fits in this little bag. That's where he puts everything. But not only that, if you don't bring all this, there's more room. So you've got space for more spices and hundreds and thousands and beef stocks. If you consider everything that you bring, there will definitely be some stuff that's worth you condensing down. Righto folks, we've come to an conclusion here, and that is just research and think about it and plan it. Planning your vehicle layout is as important as planning the trip yourself. You know, share your gear with your friends. That is the #1 way to save gear instantly. Lay all your stuff out, only pick what you need, and that is the second best way. And if you're about to build a vehicle, just really look at the first 4 points that I made in this video. They're the most important ones for you, and that is to make sure you weigh everything. To weigh everything that goes into the vehicle. Consider everything that goes in there, because that is going to save you from the beginning. You're better off spending once and crying once rather than spending 2, 3, 4 times and crying 2, 3, 4 times because you've had to keep changing your setup. I've changed this vehicle so many times, I've finally got to a place where I'm happy, and I hope that this video helps you get to a point where you just build your car once and you're there. Because going through all of this is not cheap. It's not cheap at all. Now, yes, I do get helped a bit with items on my vehicle nowadays, but I have done all the spending in the early days. This vehicle is 6 years old. The first 4 or 5 years, I pretty much bought almost 100% of the stuff on my vehicle. So I know how it feels. Be careful, you know. You can't just say it's just money. It's not just money. It's hard-earned money. We all work hard for our money. Most people that own 4 drives and live this lifestyle, who go out into the bush, who long to get out there and go camping, we're all middle-class people and below. That's who we are. Hard-earned dollars. Don't waste them. I hope you found this video refreshing and useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and patreon.com/RonnieDale. Cheers guys, see you in the next one.